Welcome, curious minds. My name is Daniel, and this is Flying Chariots: The Rise. Guys, I think today I had a near-death experience. Yeah. I was at the all-you-can-eat yesterday, and I ate a shitload of extra hot wings. And when I had to use the bathroom this morning, I think I saw the light. I even saw my grandmother waving at me from the other side of the tunnel. It was bright light and everything. And she was screaming, she was saying, "Daniel, come here, everything is better on this side." And I said, "No, Grandma, get the fuck out of here, I'm taking a shit." Yeah. This is exactly how it happened. I'm not making this up, guys. I'm not making this up. But today, we don't want to talk about near-death experiences and out-of-body things and all that stuff, which is a great topic. I love to talk about stuff like that. But that's for another day. Today we are talking about something else. Something very interesting. We're going to talk about fungi, or fungal networks, and a hidden superstructure, which sounds, to some at least, boring at first, but guys, bear with me. I think this is going to be very interesting. So, when we imagine the greatest living structures on Earth, we usually look up, and we think about towering redwood forests or ancient oak trees. For all you not country kids, these are those big wooden sticks that grow out of the dirt. But what if I told you one of the largest living systems on our planet isn't reaching towards the sky? It's quietly spreading beneath our feet. Every step you take, whether across a forest or a meadow or even your own backyard, you are walking above an invisible world. A living network so vast that scientists have only recently begun to understand its true scale. It's gigantic. Ginormous. It doesn't have a heartbeat or a brain, just like my ex-girlfriend. But still, it connects millions of plants. It moves nutrients across entire ecosystems, stores enormous amounts of carbon, and has been quietly shaping life on Earth for more than 450 million years. Now, a new international study has produced the first global map of this crazy hidden world. And if you go to the video description down below, you will find a link, and if you click on the link, it will send you straight to this map. It's very interesting. Check it out. Well, what the scientists discovered is almost impossible to comprehend. Beneath the surface of our planet lies an underground network of fungal filaments stretching an estimated 110 quadrillion kilometers. Isn't that crazy? That's nearly 1 billion times the distance between Earth and the Sun. Imagine that, guys. Imagine that. 1 billion times the distance between Earth and Sun. And despite supporting much of the life we see around us, most people have never even heard of it. Well, maybe we heard of it, but who knew that it would be so gigantic, right? Now, when someone says the word mushroom, most of us picture the familiar shape rising above the forest floor. A stem, a cap, right? Perhaps growing beside a fallen tree after a rainy day. But that picture is surprisingly misleading, because what we call a mushroom is only a tiny part of the organism. It's the fruit, so to speak. Man, and I remember when I was younger, when I was a child, I had to go with my dad to the woods, and he was picking these mushrooms because he'd like to eat them. And I hated them. I didn't want to eat them, and I didn't want to go with them to collect them, but I had to. Man, it's crazy. Today it's different, guys. Today it's different. I like me some shrooms now and then, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but back to topic. The real organism exists almost entirely underground. Hidden within the soil is an intricate web of microscopic threads known as hyphae. Together, these threads form an enormous living structure called mycelium. Unlike plant roots, these delicate filaments are incredibly thin. They weave through tiny spaces between grains of soil, places no root could ever reach. For so long we walked across these crazy networks without realizing that it's even there. They were too small to see, and of course too complex to understand. Only recently have scientists developed the tools needed to reveal just how extraordinary they truly are. And what they discovered changes the way we think about forests, grasslands, and perhaps life on land itself. Because these underground threads don't simply exist beneath plants, they work with them in one of the oldest and most successful partnerships our planet has ever known. So the story of this gigantic network begins long before forests, even before the first dinosaur ever walked across the earth. Man, I love dinosaurs. I love the thought that humans and dinosaurs existed at the same time, man. I know it probably didn't happen, but man, wouldn't that be cool? Well, more than 450 million years ago, our planet looked very, very different. The continents were largely barren. There were no towering trees, no grassy plains. There were no colorful landscapes stretching towards the horizon. Life had already flourished in the oceans. But on land, survival was an entirely different challenge. The soil was harsh, and water was very difficult to reach. Essential nutrients were locked deep within rocks and tiny pockets of earth. For the earliest plants, simply staying alive was really a struggle. And that's where fungi entered the story. Scientists now believe that this partnership between plants and underground fungi may have been one of the most important turning points in the history of life on Earth. Instead of competing, they cooperated. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Well, plants had something fungi desperately needed. Using sunlight, they could produce sugars through photosynthesis. Fungi couldn't do that. But fungi possessed a remarkable ability that plants lacked. Their microscopic fungal threads could spread through the soil in every direction, reaching tiny cracks and spaces that even the smallest roots could never enter. They collected water, phosphorus, nitrogen, and other essential minerals hidden deep within the ground. And then they traded those nutrients to the plant. In return, the plant shared the sugars it had created from sunlight. It was one of nature's oldest economies. There were no money, no competition. There were only exchange. And that's cool. It's a partnership so successful that it still exists today beneath almost every forest, every grassland and meadow on Earth. In fact, scientists estimate that the majority of plants still rely on these ancient fungal partnerships to survive and thrive. Without them, many ecosystems would look completely different. Some might never have existed at all. For hundreds of millions of years, this invisible alliance has quietly shaped the surface of our planet, without attracting the slightest attention from the creatures walking above it. For a long time, scientists could only study tiny fragments of this structure, a few microscopic fungal threads viewed through a laboratory microscope. It was like trying to understand the entire internet by examining one single cable. And that is exactly what this international team set out to change. Understanding the internet, it's said. That's crazy. I don't understand the internet anymore. It has completely gone crazy since I started using it. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Clapcat, Facebook. Everyone's just sticking their nose in that crap instead of using the internet for something useful. I don't know, man. The world has gone crazy. But back to topic. Scientists from around the world joined forces in an ambitious effort to create the first global map of these underground fungal networks. Thousands of soil samples were collected from every continent. Advanced imaging techniques tracked hundreds of thousands of individual fungal filaments. Ecological data, climate models, and field observations were combined to estimate how these invisible networks spread beneath the planet's surface. And at one point, it spread on my private parts too. But that's a story for another day. Scientists weren't looking at isolated patches of fungi. They were looking at the planet as a whole, and what emerged was astonishing. The scientists estimate that Earth's topsoil contains approximately 110 quadrillion kilometers of living fungal filaments. Well, that's a crazy number. It's a number so enormous that it almost loses its meaning. So let's put it into perspective. The average distance between the Earth and the Sun is about 150 million kilometers. Told you before, guys. Now, stretch these fungal filaments into one continuous strand, and they would reach the Sun. And back. Nearly 1 billion times. It's difficult to imagine anything on that scale. We're not talking about a forest or a continent. We're talking about one of the largest living infrastructures ever discovered on our planet. A hidden web that has been quietly growing beneath our feet for hundreds of millions of years. Invisible and silent, yet touching almost every ecosystem on Earth. Perhaps the most remarkable part is, this wasn't something newly created. It wasn't suddenly spreading across the planet. It has been there all along, waiting for us to finally develop the tools capable of seeing it. Perhaps the wildest part of this discovery isn't the number itself, not the 110 quadrillion kilometers. Maybe the most outstanding part is that this world has always been here. For millions of years, forests have grown, species have appeared and vanished, and throughout it all, this silent underground kingdom continued to expand. And I think it's a humbling reminder that some of Earth's greatest wonders have never been hidden in distant galaxies or buried inside forgotten temples, which would be very cool, by the way. They've been beneath our feet all along, quietly supporting life. Thank you for joining me on Flying Chariots the Rise. If you enjoyed today's journey, consider following the podcast and sharing this episode with someone who loves discovering the hidden wonders of our world. Until next time, keep looking up, but every once in a while, don't forget to look down. If I want to see a gigantic structure, I look down on myself, if you know what I mean. No. Bye, guys.